Hello, and welcome to Thriving Talk with Karen and Colleen, where we explore different ways to thrive in our lives as well as influence others positively. I'm Karen, and I'm here with my co host, Colleen.
Hi, everyone. It's great to have you join us for our second episode. Today, we're going to talk about how we can embrace the new normal by turning our hearts, minds, and souls increasingly to God.
As we navigate the changes in our lives, it's important to focus on building uplifting habits and traditions while stripping away demoralizing and unhealthy ones.
If there is anything virtuous, lovely, or of good report or praiseworthy, we seek after these things. I love this quote. It makes me feel like we're just striving to do good things.
Absolutely. That's found in the articles of faith. We can focus on things that are uplifting. We'll have a much more thriving life. There's another quote, this one in the Bible in Philippians. Just bring that up here. And it complements what we just read in the articles of faith.
Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. Oh, I love that.
Isn't that powerful? We live in a world where there's so much negativity and we need more positivity. And if we apply more positive, truthful, honest, virtuous things into our lives, into our thoughts continually, we will be happier, more blessed people.
I feel like I see that in the world, right? We're craving values again. We're wanting these values, and we see it in our children and our children's lives. And just to think of these things that if we just are focusing on these good things that are available to us, and we're actually turning our values to that, I think we do feel that emptiness go, and we are filled with so many good things again. These are good virtues.
Right. Now imagine applying these good virtues into our daily traditions and routines. So Elder Pino, he mentioned in a general conference talk that there are different things that we can implement in our lives, different routines and traditions to help us be happier. And so these routines are based on virtuous, good, lovely, praiseworthy things. So let's go into one of the quotes that leads into what is the first thing that he suggests us do for a routine for our home. I'll read this one. This one
Okay.
is from Sister Linda Reeves of the Relief Society General Presidency. It says, I must testify of the blessings of daily scripture study and prayer and weekly family home evening. These are the very practices that help take away stress, give direction to our lives, and add protection to our homes.
Can I just tell you, I love that. And I feel that I do feel that protection, and I need that protection, right? We want that as a protection, especially as mothers. We're wanting protection over our children. We're wanting protection over our homes. We're needing that as mothers and as nurturers. Like to feel that those are so great to have that, where it says, I must testify of the blessings of daily scripture study. That means I want scripture study because I know that if I have that scripture study, I will be safeguarded. I will be blessed. I will have that. And then it goes on to prayer and weekly family home evening, which is like a weekly gathering. I know that we have weekly gatherings with our children. And it's when we get to nurture our relationships, when we get to have that time together. And whether it be a spiritual scripture study together or just play, we like to play games. It's nurturing those relationships and feeding those times so we have good memories to look back on. It enriches and bonds our bonds together. I love those times when we just are playing games or scripture time too. They are both worthy and wholesome activities to do together. that it builds what family is.
Exactly. Yeah, so he mentions the first thing is the scripture reading, and he mentions another one is family prayer. And right, like you said, along with all of that, having family time set aside um, definitely is a routine or habit that is um, really good to have, just to help us have a more happy and thriving family life and personal life as well.
I think it does enrich families. It really does enrich even marriages. It enriches our bond together as a spouse, me and my husband. It really helps us feel that we do have this stewardship over this family. So when we're deciding together and making those traditions together, we can we are working together, and that blesses us a lot in our marriage relationship as well.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to go to this next one. This is by President Henry B. Eyring from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
Sorry.
Saints.
That first exposure is to scripture study is going to be hard. It may be tough because you won't get great insights right away. Over time
Mhm.
and with more practice, the number of uplifting discoveries and the moments of personal revelation occur more frequently every day. And I love that. I feel that when I've been out of scripture study and then I get back into it, it's kind of rough to even understand and oh, what does this mean? But then the more I'm doing it, I'm like, oh, wait a second. Oh, now I remember this, and it's connecting to this to my life. And I can find the layers of learning in the parables, and then I'm getting that deeper learning because I've gone into the scriptures and focused on what I can benefit from it. And I feel like the spirit of revelation is helping me understand those hard concepts or hard words that sometimes we don't read all the time. So we don't know it all the time. So I love the benefit of reading scriptures daily and getting that habit and then getting that revelation to understand.
Right. And I like how you mentioned there's kind of layers of learning, because even though at the beginning you might not get a lot out of it, it depends. If you're just a kid, you might not get a lot out of it. If you're already a very scholarly adult, you might catch on right away. But just because you're younger and you might not catch on to everything right away, there's still value in studying while you're young. And even for the kids to hear you reading out loud, even if they can't follow along yet, um, it kind of sinks into the back of their head and then into their mind. And then as they do start to through the years start to study more, and the layers start to stack up,
Yeah,
it really starts to sink in, and they're starting to have that deeper understanding. But at first, yeah, it's a childlike understanding, and then it gets deeper and deeper. So even though we may have learned things while we were young, it's important to continue learning even as adults throughout our whole life, so we can gain a deeper understanding. And as we do so, we will find ways to thrive better in our lives, to come closer to God, and feel more connected and in tune with the Spirit. And it'll just bless us. So it really is important to keep going, keep reading. And just because you read something once, it doesn't mean you never need to read it again. The Spirit
exactly.
that can come as you continue to read is a huge blessing that we need in our lives every day.
I love
So,
that. And I
yeah.
do feel like precept upon precept, like my understanding may not be there. And then the next time I come around and maybe read it again, I'm like, oh, I get that in a deeper level, or I see it now in a different light, or the phase of my life or the trial I'm going through. I totally learned a different lesson when I read that the second time. So I think even our challenges and where we're at in life in a phase, like I look at my younger mothering, totally different now that I'm older. Like I see things totally different in a totally different light when I'm reading the scriptures. And I go, wow, I didn't see that years ago, but now I see it, and it totally helps me. I feel like I learn and I have better understanding because of my own experiences, my own wisdom through life. So then when I read the scriptures again, I'm like, I get it this way, or I see it in a different teaching ability too. I can teach my children in a different way as well. So yeah, the more we read it and go back, don't give up, precept on precept, step by step, every day, try again.
Absolutely. Yes, and I love that. Our life circumstances change, and our understanding of those scriptures and applying them into our lives will be different every time that we read. So, yeah, keep reading that. Elder Pino mentions the traditions that are really good to help us in our lives. So, he mentioned the personal and family scripture study, the personal and family prayer, and then he also suggests something else.
Yeah, he says that as we prepare ourselves and attend weekly church services, it is a great tradition and routine to develop our families. I love to be able to go to church with my kids. It is a family tradition for us. It does help my kids grow. And I feel like it's a good family activity, right? We're doing this together. We're growing our values together. We're making those habits into traditions, which traditions are so good for our kids, right? And going to church weekly, participating in church services weekly, that is a blessing. That is a great tradition. And so my kids feel comfortable doing it. Because we made it into the habit and the habits become a tradition, they're comfortable. They love church.
Yeah, and I like how when we commit to go to church every Sunday, it's not that's the only day we worship. It's, because we need to worship every day, but that's a day where we can set it aside specifically for him. And we
Mm.
might not always be perfect at the way that we run that day, that Sabbath day, but it's important to work at that and have God be part of our life every day, but spend that whole day and dedicate it all towards Him.
Yeah, I love that. And I agree, like every day we should be worshiping Christ in all aspects, and having our children used to that and comfortable with that too. But I do love setting aside going, but Sunday is the Sabbath. We get to focus on him. We get to be with him all day. We get to be his hands that day and serve in his ways and make it a total focus. I
Right.
love that. I love that.
Right, and put the other things of the world aside and just focus on this at this time. So there's one more thing that he suggests, Elder Pino, with the different traditions to make into our new normal of virtuous and uplifting things in our lives. And this is family history. So I don't know how many people are familiar with family history, but discovering and documenting your family tree, their life stories, all the details that you can have, their heirlooms, collecting them, their photos. There's wonderful things happen when you can connect with your ancestors. You not only learn more about yourself as you learn about them, but it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience.
So I have an aunt. My aunt, I mean, I just love what she does, but she makes a cake once a month for all of her ancestors. And then they celebrate anyone's birthday. And so they kind of get to know like which ancestor, had a birthday that month, and maybe they'll read and learn something about them. I thought that was a great idea to get to know. But my grandfather actually wrote volumes and volumes and books and books and books of all stories from my ancestors. So we have 4 huge volumes. And so sometimes on those Monday nights when we get together as a family, we'll say, hey, let's read some story out of Grandpa's book. And they are fascinating stories. Like the stories younger, that have stories of my grandmother when she was younger, stories of my father. And he even will have copied letters that all of his grandchildren had written him. And so they're also photocopied in the book as well. So we can see old letters from cousins when they were on their LDS missions and serving. And so you'll see all these fun stories, and it just makes you feel bonded to your family when you're actually studying your family history. You feel so much closer, like just time goes and you just feel so a part of these ancestors that have passed on. but you get to now get to know their lives. And I want my kids to learn that. Like, I want my kids to feel that they know, my aunt that passed away years ago, that they can still get to know her just through ancestry, through stories.
Well, and even I'm thinking recipes. If you are making the same bread recipe that your great 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 grandmother used to make, that's kind of a really neat connection that you can have as you're making it, and you're just feeling that connection. So it's good to even scan those things and store them for people who might feel they don't have their family history done, or they don't know where to start to discover all of this. Do you have any suggestion of where they could start?
Yes, there is a place called, ancestry.com, and they could log on there. They can get an account there, and you can just put in your name and just see where it goes and see if you can get connected. You can also put in a deceased relative, your grandfather, your grandmother, and it will just show you if you have a death date or a marriage certificate or a birth date. You could just put that in to ancestry.com, and boom, you can see your relatives of where you're at. There's so many resources also on Family Ancestry or ancestry.com. If you go in there, there's actually a lot of things you can connect with. You can even put in your fun, like the date you were born, and it'll give like a history of what happened that year. You could play, there's lots of family games in there. There's lots of memory things and games you can put in there. So I encourage anybody that hasn't even started, just go to ancestry.com and then log in. I think it's a free email. I think it's just free. You just put in your email and get an account, and then just start getting to know it. Start playing it. It's a very user-friendly website, very user-friendly, and just try it out. Try it out. See where it goes. See if you can. And I've even uploaded a memory. You can record a memory. You can scan in a memory. It's awesome. It's awesome for family history.
Yeah, it's great. There's a few different programs that you can use to work and build your family history, but definitely suggest doing it. It's a great feeling to connect with your ancestors like that, for sure. So I'm just going to share a video with you about a religious, faithful family who discovered the blessings of family history in their life. So let's just take a watch here.
I'm Jim Morrison. I live in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. I'm the Elders Quorum president in our ward. I have 3 boys. I'm not really sure how I'm gonna get my little kids involved. I remember as a kid being really bored when my parents were doing family history.
I just have not made family history work a priority. I do want to do it. I just feel a little overwhelmed by it and a little burdened.
I am skeptical that we're going to be able to make family history a part of our busy lives.
My name's Julian Davidson. I am a family history consultant. You don't need someone that's been a genealogist their whole life. You just need someone that's willing to learn. I guess I'm the person that gets people excited.
And in the name of Jesus Christ,
All right, so like what we talked about, guys, we have the family history people here to come and help us a little bit.
I'm thinking for the younger kids, we are gonna need to do stories.
So I'm gonna take the kids. Do you guys wanna do story time and dress up?
The story we did in the play was about my great-great-great-grandma and the Indians that raided her house. She went and hid in the cellar, and the Indians didn't find her.
Where is the person? Where is the person?
I think one of the challenges that they're gonna have and that a lot of people have is when you're already strong in the church and you are already going to the temple and partaking of the sacraments and doing everything you can, you're already receiving blessings, and so sometimes it's hard to see how it can be so much better.
These are my great-great-great.
Does that say he was a blacksmith?
I don't know.
That's what it looks like.
That was just really, really cool to be there with Landon and searching for that and finding that information together. Now I'm invested. It's more than just curiosity. I want to get these people to the temple. We went to the temple tonight as a family, and we're able to bring some family names to the temple to do. It means something different to bring names that you've searched for and thought about. Jeffrey said, I can't wait to go to the temple, Dad. I can't wait to go do this too. And as a dad, that's what I want to hear. Because there's nothing I want more for my boys than to have a strong testimony and to want to be in the temple. Because I know if they're in the temple, they're doing what they're supposed to do. Start doing it. Start doing this work. Start doing your own family history. Because this is the work of salvation. And not just the salvation of our ancestors. This is the work of our own salvation.
These are just a few examples of traditions we can adopt to make our normal of letting God prevail in our lives. We'd love to hear from you about what other uplifting habits and traditions you have incorporated into your lives. What experiences can you share?
When we take control of what we allow to be our new normal in our lives, we can experience the state of never-ending happiness.
It's all about developing habits and traditions that align with our values and help us in our efforts to be better disciples of Jesus Christ.
For more information on this topic, we recommend Elder Rafael E. Pino's General Conference talk, Let Doing Good Be Our Normal. I'll put that link in the description for you.
And that is it for today's episode of Thriving Talk. Thanks for joining, and we'd love to hear from you today. Please like, share, and subscribe.
That's right. And until next time, bye.
Bye.